Before we begin this morning prayer, I want to ask you something that may feel uncomfortable. When was the last time you were completely honest with yourself? Not with your family, not with your friends, not with the version of yourself you show the world, but with the person you become when nobody is watching. Because many people spend years trying to understand life while avoiding understanding themselves. They analyze other people's choices. They notice other people's flaws. They question other people's motives. Yet they rarely pause long enough to examine their own heart. And that creates a dangerous disconnect, because it is possible to see everything around you while remaining blind to what is happening within you. It is possible to recognize the distractions in the world while ignoring the confusion inside your own spirit. It is possible to spend years searching for answers externally while the most important questions remain unanswered internally. This morning is not about judging yourself. It is not about condemnation. It is not about shame. It is about awareness, because awareness is where transformation begins. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot align what you refuse to examine. You cannot grow beyond what you refuse to confront. And perhaps the reason this message found you today is because your spirit is inviting you toward a deeper conversation. A conversation with yourself. A conversation with truth. A conversation that may change the direction of your life. Because the greatest discoveries are often not found in the world around us. They are found in the mirror within. Most people think they want truth, but what they actually want is comfort. Truth and comfort are not always the same thing. Comfort tells you everything is fine. Truth asks deeper questions. Comfort avoids tension. Truth exposes it. Comfort protects familiar patterns. Truth challenges them. And that is why genuine self-reflection feels uncomfortable, because it requires courage. It asks us to look beyond excuses, beyond appearances, beyond carefully crafted narratives. It asks us to see ourselves clearly, not worse than we are, not better than we are, clearly. Many people avoid self-reflection because they fear what they might discover. What if I am contributing to my own frustration? What if some of my struggles are connected to habits I have never questioned? What if the breakthrough I seek requires changes I have been resisting? What if the obstacle is not entirely external? These questions can feel threatening, yet they are also liberating. Because once something becomes visible, it can be transformed. What remains hidden often remains unchanged. And so the first step toward alignment is not perfection. It is honesty. Honesty creates clarity, and clarity creates movement. Every day people look, few truly see. Looking happens with the eyes. Seeing happens with awareness. You can look at your life every day and still fail to see the patterns shaping it. You can look at your relationships and miss the habits influencing them. You can look at your circumstances and never recognize the beliefs guiding your decisions. This is why two people can experience similar situations yet respond completely differently. Because circumstances do not determine everything. Perception matters. Awareness matters. Interpretation matters. Many people believe their greatest challenge is outside themselves. Sometimes it is, but often the greater challenge lies in understanding how they are responding internally. What fears are influencing their choices? What assumptions are limiting their possibilities? What unresolved wounds are shaping their reactions? What narratives have they accepted without question? The mirror within reveals these things, not to condemn, but to illuminate. Because light reveals what darkness conceals, and awareness reveals what avoidance protects. Every person carries internal stories. Some are empowering, limiting, true. Some are outdated, yet many people never stop long enough to examine them. These stories often sound like facts, but many are simply beliefs repeated so often that they feel true. Over time, they become lenses through which life is interpreted. Every setback becomes proof. Every challenge becomes confirmation. Every disappointment becomes evidence, and eventually the story feels undeniable. But self-reflection asks an important question. Is the story true, or has it simply been repeated? Because many people are not trapped by reality. They are trapped by the narrative they have built around reality. And until that narrative is examined, growth remains difficult. Not because change is impossible, but because the mind keeps returning to familiar conclusions. The mirror within challenges those conclusions. It asks us to reconsider what we have accepted without question. And that process, though uncomfortable, creates freedom. Rarely does someone wake up one morning completely disconnected from themselves. Misalignment usually develops gradually. One compromise, one ignored conviction, one postponed conversation. Small decisions repeated consistently create direction, and direction eventually creates destiny. That is why self-reflection matters so deeply, because it allows us to notice drift before drift becomes distance. Imagine a ship moving slightly off course. The adjustment seems insignificant at first, but over time the destination changes dramatically. Life often works the same way. Tiny misalignments become major consequences when left unexamined. Not because people are bad, not because they lack potential, but because awareness was absent. And awareness is one of the greatest gifts we can cultivate. It allows correction before crisis, realignment before regret, growth before collapse. There is a version of courage that receives little attention. The courage to sit quietly and ask, who am I becoming? What am I avoiding? What needs to change? What patterns keep repeating? What truth have I been resisting? What is my spirit trying to tell me? These questions require humility, because honest answers often challenge the image we have of ourselves. Yet this courage leads somewhere powerful, because pretending drains energy. Avoidance creates tension. Denial delays growth. But truth, even difficult truth, creates possibility. The moment you stop running from what needs attention, transformation can begin. And perhaps that is where your next season starts. One of the greatest challenges of modern life is not a lack of information. It is a lack of silence. Every day there is another notification, another opinion, another video, another headline, another distraction demanding attention. And while the world becomes louder, many people become less connected to themselves. Not because they lack wisdom, but because wisdom often speaks quietly. The deepest truths rarely shout. They whisper. They emerge in still moments. They surface during reflection. They reveal themselves when external noise fades. Yet many people have become uncomfortable with silence. The moment quiet arrives, they reach for something. A screen, a conversation, a task, a distraction, anything to avoid being alone with their thoughts. But if you are constantly surrounded by noise, how can you hear what your spirit is trying to say? How can you recognize misalignment if you never pause long enough to notice it? How can you discover truth if every moment is occupied by distraction? This is why self-reflection is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a spiritual discipline, because silence creates space, and space allows awareness to emerge. Avoidance often feels harmless in the beginning. A difficult conversation postponed, a feeling ignored, a pattern excused. At first the consequences seem small, but avoidance has a way of accumulating interest. What is ignored does not disappear. It often grows. The insecurity left unexamined influences decisions. The fear left unchallenged limits opportunities. The resentment left unresolved affects relationships. The self-doubt left unquestioned shapes identity. And over time, people find themselves living lives influenced by forces they never consciously chose. This is the hidden cost of avoidance. It transfers power to what remains unseen, and what remains unseen often becomes difficult to manage. Imagine driving a car while refusing to look at the dashboard. Warning lights appear, signals emerge, messages attempt to communicate. But because they are ignored, small issues eventually become larger ones. The human spirit works similarly. Inner discomfort often carries information. Not every feeling should control us, but every feeling deserves examination. Many people associate spiritual growth only with prayer, scripture, worship, or service, and those things are deeply important. But spiritual maturity also includes self-awareness, because growth requires understanding, and understanding begins with observation. The more aware you become of your thoughts, your reactions, your habits, and your motivations, the more intentional your life becomes. You begin noticing patterns before they control you. You recognize emotions before they overwhelm you. You identify fears before they dictate your decisions. You observe assumptions before they become limitations. This is powerful because awareness creates choice, and choice creates freedom. Without awareness, people often operate on autopilot, repeating habits they never selected consciously, responding from old wounds, living from inherited beliefs, following patterns that no longer serve them. But awareness interrupts the cycle. It creates a pause, and inside that pause exists possibility. The possibility to respond differently, the possibility to choose differently, the possibility to grow. That is why self-awareness is not self-obsession. It is stewardship. It is taking responsibility for the inner life that shapes everything else. Have you ever noticed certain challenges seem to appear repeatedly? Different faces, different locations, different circumstances, yet strangely familiar lessons, the same frustrations, the same emotional triggers, the same disappointments, the same conflicts. Many people interpret repetition as bad luck. Sometimes repetition is instruction. Life often repeats lessons that have not yet been fully understood, not as punishment, as opportunity, because what remains unlearned tends to return. And each return presents a question. Will this time be different? Will awareness replace automatic reaction? Will growth replace repetition? Will truth replace avoidance? The mirror within helps us recognize these patterns. Not so we can criticize ourselves, so we can learn from ourselves. Because every repeated experience carries information, and every lesson understood creates freedom. One of the heaviest burdens many people carry is the pressure to maintain an image. But maintaining appearances requires enormous energy, and eventually that energy runs out, because no one can sustain a version of themselves that isn't fully authentic forever. At some point, the gap between who you are and who you pretend to be becomes exhausting. Peace begins arriving when those two versions move closer together. When honesty replaces performance, when authenticity replaces image management, when truth replaces appearance. This doesn't mean sharing every struggle with everyone. It means becoming honest with yourself. Because transformation begins where honesty begins, and alignment becomes possible when the person you are internally matches the person you are becoming externally. That is freedom, not perfection. Alignment. Many people fear self-reflection because they assume it will reveal flaws, and it will. But it will reveal more than that. It will reveal strengths you have overlooked, growth you have underestimated, wisdom you have earned, resilience you have developed, faith that has carried you through difficult seasons. The mirror within does not exist solely to expose weakness. It exists to reveal truth, the full truth, not just the areas needing improvement, but also the progress already made. Because sometimes people become so focused on what still needs work that they forget how far they have already come, and growth requires both honesty and encouragement. The ability to acknowledge imperfections while also recognizing progress. The ability to see clearly without becoming discouraged. The ability to remain humble without losing confidence. This balance creates healthy transformation. Many people spend years searching for peace in external circumstances. They believe peace will arrive when the right opportunity appears, when the right relationship arrives, when finances improve, when uncertainty disappears, when life finally becomes easier. But true alignment teaches something different. Peace is not always the absence of challenges. Peace is often the absence of internal conflict. It is the moment your actions begin matching your values. It is the moment your choices begin reflecting your deepest convictions. It is the moment your heart stops moving in one direction while your spirit pulls in another. Many people feel exhausted not because life is demanding, but because they are living in contradiction. They know what needs to change, yet they resist it. They know what truth is asking of them, yet they avoid it. They know what their spirit has been whispering, yet they keep drowning it out. And this internal resistance creates friction. Friction creates exhaustion. Exhaustion creates confusion. Then people wonder why they feel disconnected. Alignment removes that friction. It creates a sense of wholeness. not perfection. Wholeness, a feeling that your inner life and outer life are beginning to move together instead of against each other, and there is tremendous peace in that. There is a unique kind of freedom that arrives when you stop running from yourself, because what you avoid often gains power over you. But what you face begins to lose its control. Think about how much energy people spend avoiding uncomfortable truths, the truth about a version of themselves they have outgrown. Avoidance feels easier in the moment, but over time it becomes exhausting. Honesty may feel uncomfortable initially, but honesty creates freedom, because once something is acknowledged, it can be addressed. Once it is addressed, it can be transformed. And once transformed, it no longer controls you in the same way. This is why the mirror within is not something to fear. It is something to appreciate, because it reveals the path toward greater freedom. Every day you have conversations with other people, friends, family, co-workers, strangers. But there is one conversation that influences every other conversation. The one you have with yourself. The voice inside your mind matters. The beliefs you reinforce matter. The words you repeat internally matter, because your inner dialogue shapes your perception, and perception shapes your reality. If your internal conversation is constantly critical, fearful, defeated, or limiting, it becomes difficult to experience peace externally. This does not mean ignoring problems. It means learning to speak truth instead of fear. Learning to speak possibility instead of limitation. Learning to speak wisdom instead of condemnation. The mirror within reveals these internal conversations. It exposes the narratives that have quietly shaped your life. And once those narratives become visible, they can be rewritten, not through denial, through awareness, through intentionality, through truth. Perhaps the most beautiful truth of all is this: your future growth does not require you to become someone else. It requires you to become more fully yourself. The version of you that is aligned, authentic, grounded, aware, spiritually awake. The version of you that no longer needs constant validation. The version of you that trusts truth more than comfort. The version of you that values growth more than appearances. The version of you that is willing to face reality because they understand that reality is where transformation begins. That version of you already exists as possibility. The question is whether you are willing to meet them. And meeting them begins with honesty, not tomorrow, not next year, today. Because every moment of awareness becomes an opportunity for alignment, and every step toward alignment becomes a step toward peace. Heavenly Father, thank you for this new morning. Thank you for the gift of another day. Thank you for the breath in my lungs, the life within me, and the opportunity to begin again. As I enter this day, I come before you with an open heart, not pretending, not performing, not hiding behind appearances. I come honestly, because you already see every part of me. You see the strengths I often forget. You see the wounds I rarely discuss. You see the fears I try to hide. You see the questions I carry. You see the areas where I am growing and the areas where I am struggling. And still, you love me completely. Father, help me become more aware of myself. Give me the courage to look within honestly. Help me recognize the habits that no longer serve me. Help me notice the thoughts that keep limiting me. Help me identify the fears that have quietly influenced my decisions. Help me see the areas where I have drifted from who you are calling me to become. Lord, remove the blindness that keeps me from seeing clearly. Not only the blindness that affects how I view the world, but the blindness that affects how I view myself. Reveal what needs attention. Reveal what needs healing. Reveal what needs correction. Reveal what needs growth. And give me the wisdom to respond with humility rather than defensiveness. Father, teach me not to fear truth. Teach me to welcome it. Because truth may be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. Help me understand that awareness is not condemnation. Awareness is an invitation toward growth, an invitation toward healing, an invitation toward greater alignment. Lord, where I have been distracted, restore focus. Where I have been confused, bring clarity. Where I have been divided internally, bring unity. Where I have been resisting necessary change, give me courage. Help me stop running from conversations I need to have with myself. Help me stop avoiding what needs attention. Help me stop choosing temporary comfort over lasting growth. Father, align my heart with wisdom. Align my thoughts with truth. Align my choices with purpose. Align my actions with my deepest values. Align my life with the person you are calling me to become. When my emotions become overwhelming, give me perspective. When fear clouds my judgment, give me discernment. When insecurity speaks loudly, remind me of my worth. When doubt appears, strengthen my faith. When confusion arises, guide my steps. Lord, help me become more authentic. Free me from the need to impress. Free me from the need to perform. Free me from the need to appear perfect. Teach me to value truth more than image, integrity more than approval, authenticity more than appearance. Help me become comfortable being honest with myself, because honesty is where transformation begins. Father, I pray for every person listening right now. May they find the courage to examine their heart without fear. May they discover wisdom hidden beneath distraction. May they uncover truth hidden beneath assumptions. May they experience peace that comes from alignment. May they release patterns that no longer serve them. May they embrace growth without shame. May they welcome awareness without judgment. May they trust that you are guiding them towards something greater. Lord, let this day become a day of clarity, a day of insight, a day of reflection, a day of alignment, a day of spiritual awakening. May we leave behind self-deception and embrace truth. May we leave behind avoidance and embrace growth. May we leave behind confusion and embrace understanding. And may we walk forward with greater wisdom, greater peace, and greater awareness than we had yesterday. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you for your mercy. Thank you for your truth. And thank you for the transformation that begins when we are willing to look honestly into the mirror within. In your name I pray. Amen. The world will always offer opinions about who you should become. But growth begins when you become honest about who you already are. Because you can spend your entire life studying the world around you and still miss the most important discovery of all. The person in the mirror. You see the world, but do you truly see yourself?